Professor, political economist Patu Thomas says backing off from the shadow government that holds government accountable will betray his moral obligation as the court is yet to fix hearing on the charges preferred against him by the DSS. Chief of Defense Staff hints on more military assets approved by the president to combat terrorism and insurgency across the country. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzong. It's a weekend edition of the program where we try to curate the big things that happen in the polity and in politics and bring it to the fore right here in the program. And a lot has been going on both online and offline. We'll aggregate all of them to make sense of the situation. And today, we're going to look broadly on the state of the nation, as well as things that has to do with rights and security. But let's just tell you that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has assured Nigerians that the military is very committed to addressing the recent surge in insecurity across the country. Now, he disclosed this after he met with President Bola Tinubu, saying that there's been an approval of acquisition of additional air assets to strengthen the fight against insurgency. He stated this immediately after that meeting where his colleagues, the other service chiefs, had met with the president behind closed doors. The CDS adds that additional equipment has already been procured to strengthen the fight against terrorists who have intensified their attacks in recent months, particularly in the northern region of the country.
Concerned what's going on, and we have reassured him that we're on top of our game. We're working extremely very hard. What has happened of recent is that there's a global push by terrorists and jihadists all over the Sahel area, and that pressure is what actually came into Nigeria because of the nature of our borders. And so we have, Mr. President has given directives as to what to do next for us to intensify all efforts, collaborate with all our sister countries around, because it is the porous nature that is coming there that is actually aggravating our own issues on ground. And so all our theaters have been enhanced, equipment have been bought. Mr. President has also given us much approvals for air assets and other aspects of security. And like we said, it's not only the kinetic effort, the non-kinetic aspects that is most important. The President is also looking at the aspects of also discussing with the governors for their own support, buy-in in ensuring that dividends of democracy also extends to the communities to be able to stamp down the issue of insecurity.
All right, so those are great news coming in from the CDS as far as assets to combat terrorism is concerned. And let's hope that this is going to make a difference, because the resurgence of insecurity in parts of Borno, especially where even our forward bases are now being attacked along the fringes of Lake Chad, is very concerning. Our soldiers are being killed, and these guys have literally upscaled their powers or their equipment in that sense, where they now use drones. Though there has been that back and forth as to the efficiency of all of that. But the truth has to be said, which is the fact that we have a challenge of insecurity in our country, and it has to be stopped as soon as possible. Let's move away from the security issues to talk about politics. Who is leading the Labour Party is still a subject of controversy. There's a caretaker committee. There is Abure Labour Party. All of them literally a brickbat as to who is responsible for what. The other day, Julius Abure had said he's going to expose all of the leaders who are on the side of the caretaker committee. Nenadu Usman, Alex Sotsi, the governor of Abia State, Peter Obi, the presidential candidate in the last election. Well, Nenadu Usman, the senator, has now actually come out to say, well, she's daring him to say whatever he has to say. He said he wants to expose them. So she has given him the full opportunity. Whatever Abure has against them, she said she should go ahead and expose them. So it looks like the crisis in the Labour Party is very far from over. In fact, just yesterday, the REC of Lagos State, ahead of the election, is it REC now, one of the electoral officers of Lagos State, ahead of the elections, the local government elections, had said that they don't even know who to relate with, because Lagos State, for instance, has 3 leadership of the Labour Party. So that's how things have been playing out. We can also talk about the PDP. We keep saying these things every other day. But let's talk about another big thing that has been playing out. Professor Patu told me has said he's going to set out a shadow government, and that has generated controversy. That the APC has responded to him. But before we know from, boom, the DSS took him to court. Well, he's been responding, and I want to show you some of the things he said as far as that is concerned when he got to realize that the DSS has sued him over constitutional issue, that there can only be one government and all of that back and forth. Well, the prof has now responded. It looks like he's not backing down, and he explained what a shadow government meant on this show. I interviewed him last week, Friday. He said, with the one-party state intentions of the APC and financing of crisis in all parties outside APC, compounded by the greed of the politicians to remain in perennial lane of sharing, the desperation for oxygen in the system meant the imperative of the big tent shadow team. That's coming from Professor Patu told me. He went on to say that, well, to back away from shadowing the government to keep it accountable is betrayal of a moral obligation. The big tent shadow team will have to pursue this citizen's duty with diligence and the highest ethical consideration. More importantly, the compass must lead to the common good. So, hey, it's going to be... he actually talked about the fact that people have been commending him. There are threats as well. As the people said, they'll put together about 500 lawyers to defend him against the DSS. We're going to talk about that today. The issue of dissenting voice and the ruling party and everything in between later on the show. But well, let's bring you our political roundup stories.
President Bola Tinubu has pledged his administration's continuous support to the Nigerian Air Force and other security agencies in the country in the area of fleet modernization, training, and welfare. He made the pledge at the induction ceremony of 2 Tracker helicopters into the fleet of the Nigerian Air Force, which was held in Abuja. The Vice President Kashim Shettima, who represented the president at the event, also says his government will invest more in defense technologies. The Forum of Secretaries to the government of the APC-governed states have announced their resolve to continue to support the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu and his efforts to transform Nigeria. Addressing a news conference in Abuja at the end of a 2-day strategic engagement, the chairperson of the Communique Drafting Committee of the Forum and Secretary to the government of Ekiti State, Mrs. Folashade Ayoade, says the collective foresight and governance innovations of the APC governors is entrenching democracy.
The Forum reaffirmed its loyalty to the progressive governors and resolved to strengthen mechanisms for transparency, accountability, and performance-based delivery.
A legal practitioner in Zamfara State, Barrister Mohammed Kanoma, has taken the state government to court, challenging the ban on political gatherings and rallies in the state. Kanoma filed the suit before Justice Salim Ibrahim of the Federal High Court in Gusau, the state capital. He's challenging the legality and constitutionality of the executive order, arguing that the ban infringes on fundamental human rights, particularly the rights to freedom of assembly and association as guaranteed by the Nigerian Constitution. A group of Rivers women have called for a permanent and lasting peace in the state amidst the ongoing state of emergency. The women, under the aegis of Rivers Women Unite for SIM, made the call during a prayer service at the Ecumenical Center in Port Harcourt, the state capital, saying they're not happy at the situation of things in the state right now and want their state to move forward.
Welcome back. So let's talk about the state of our nation with a potpourri of issues. My guest is a former governorship candidate under the platform of the APC in Rivers State and a businessman, oil and gas tycoon himself, Mr. Tony Cole. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Always good seeing you.
Good to see you, sir. So some heavy lifting, some conversations we need to have today. And by the way, you're still in the APC. Let's be clear on that.
No, I'm still in the APC. Yes.
Because these days, the way you guys just
everybody's potting.
Everybody's just moving. So I like to be clear, just in case I didn't get the last update, so that I know how to frame my questions. So I will not go and ask the wrong things. So let's talk about this one that has been in the news for 2 days or 3 days now. the shadow government issue. So Professor Pat had actually said he's going to form the Big Ten coalition of shadow government just to hold government to account in that sense. Perhaps the messaging on his Twitter handle was not properly decoded. The APC had responded through their publicity secretary, and we had him here. He explained himself. The APC publicity said, okay, if that is it, now you're making a bit of clarity as to what you did. But we're all surprised, and the DSS has picked it up and is suing him for constitutional breaches and all of that, more like forming a government when there's a government. What do you make of it? It's something I'm going to discuss with the lawyers later on the show, but you're a politician. What is this all about, really?
I think it's better to put it into 3 buckets. Okay, the first part of it is that many Nigerians clamor on a very regular basis for accountability. And I think Tomi is trying to answer that what kind of system can we put together to hold people who have been elected into office accountable? That's the first aspect of it. The second one is that he's borrowing it, and this is where you're now leaning on some very fine lines. He's borrowing it out of the British system that has constitutionally for them a shadow government. And so when you use the word shadow government, essentially what you're saying is that this is where you're now setting up a government that is a parallel one that has the right to come into office, sit down, get documents, and all of that. Now, that's the second aspect of it where it's a problem. And I think the third aspect, which we now then have to look at, is that can people see what an alternative should look like? Because that's really what a shadow government is. So Labour and the Conservatives, they create a shadow government that shows what an alternative should look like from here. And that, at the end of the day, is probably what he's thinking about.
So should he have just taken away the name government so that there can be peace? Was this suit even necessary in the first place in your books?
I think it's difficult. So the government will be looking at this and saying that if we don't do anything about it, then people can use the word government, set up governments, and operate with government. So maybe that's where they're coming along to stop that aspect of it. But on the other hand, you have to be very careful when you go to suits, because what you then do when you go is that you actually make people a lot more popular by now going, because then they start saying that you're persecuting them. What are you afraid of? Why are you doing this? And also a discussion should have handled.
For people who look at it and say your party, this is a broader objective of your party to further be hostile to dissenting voice. Do they have a point in that?
I think that's a difficult one. So one of the things that you're seeing is that as people port over, as parties become stronger and bigger and all of that, their voices become a lot louder while the dissenting voices become smaller and smaller. And so you have to be very careful as a big government organization, once you're bigger and bigger, to make sure that you are listening and making people also feel that they do have a voice. And I think where we're seeing a challenge now is the ability to manage when you're absorbing a lot of people into a party, and the voices that should be sounding louder on the outside are now getting smaller. So yeah, people will complain.
Okay, so let's talk about something that I started off talking about yesterday, and that has to do with what happened at the National Assembly, in the House of Reps, where what I read online, a couple of people are not happy because I think Yaga Africa even put out a statement saying it's going to be draconian as far as the intentions are good, to compel people to go out there and vote, making vote mandatory in that sense. But putting out a penalty such as jail term, they say it's a bit draconian. What's your perspective on this?
I think it's difficult to legislate that. It's going to be so you can put it in law, but then it becomes extremely difficult for you to implement it. Now take a system where probably we have voter apathy that goes up to 60–70%. I don't think we have enough jails to put people into jail for all the people that say that they will not do it. So I think we need to address this situation differently. People go out to vote when they know that they will get something positive out of who they are voting for, or a system that seems to be just and open. So as politicians, we need to be able to encourage people to come out to vote because they believe that their votes will count, rather than to legislate it and say that you must come and vote, if not you will go to jail. I think it will be very difficult to implement.
Don't you think that what the lawmakers should focus on, there are gray areas in the Constitution that politicians are taking advantage of that they should look at. For instance, the issue of defection. It looks like the law is inconveniencing political class because forget ideology. It doesn't exist in Nigerian politics. Nobody can convince me otherwise. We have seen it over and over. People may have personal ideologies. So I used to give a clear example, like economic ideology. Muhammadu Buhari is more of the right in his economic ideology. Bola Tinubu is more of the left. Bola Tinubu is more of the right. Muhammadu Buhari is more of the right in that sense. So the things that I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, shouldn't we start legislating over the issue of defection? Because there's a proviso. One, the Constitution talks about freedom of association. That's one element of you can associate as you like. Then the 109, section 109, 1G, that gives a proviso of division in a party as a premise for defection. So that has now been exploited. So don't you think we should begin to look at that? Shouldn't the lawmakers legislate about themselves rather than trying to force people to vote or otherwise?
I think it even goes deeper than that, if you ask me. Yes, there are many things that we should look at, but I personally feel that the very foundation upon which we have built our entire political story, history, and all of that is fundamentally wrong in the first instance. And that's because we have gone and we have imported a system of politics that is based on ideology, is based on understanding freedom, is based on being able to move anywhere in your natural borders and become from that location. So we have taken an American policy, for example, and that's what we have adopted. I can move to America today, have children there, live in Milwaukee, spend time, and in a few years I can run for office in Milwaukee. I cannot move to next door Yenegua and say that I want to go and run in Yenegua from Rivers State. So we have already misaligned our political values in the first instance, and that's why ideology is difficult. We need to go back to the very foundation of our culture and begin to build a political system from there. Until that is done, until we have a very, very serious discussion about who we are, what we are, and what type of politics we want to operate, our own Nigerian-built politics, this one is going to be very difficult. So yes, we can sit down and legislate it. We can sit down and look at the issue of defections. We can look at ideologies. We're never going to answer that problem.
Because Trump had gone to the Gulf, went to Abu Dhabi, went to Riyadh. I think Abu Dhabi was the last stop. He had gone to Riyadh, gone to Qatar, and secured hundreds of thousands of deals, I think even trillions of deals in that sense. But one of the things he said when he was in Saudi Arabia that caught my attention, which is what I want you to speak to. He said the MBS, the Crown Prince, had made a modern miracle the Arabian way.
Thank you.
How should we begin to build Nigerian democracy the Nigerian way?
I wish I can come and hug you right now. Because you see, until we understand it, think about it, every successful economy, every successful country has built a system of government that is unique to them. The Arabs, they were trying to force them at the beginning that they must adopt American system of democracy. They said, to hell with you. We are going to develop a system that is based on our culture. And that's what they developed. American system is based on the American culture of freedom. The British system is based on the British system of monarchies. The French system is built on the French system of a revolution. Every single one is different. The Chinese system is built on a system of understanding 5,000 years of coming in. So they have a one-party state, but on merit. Clear, absolute merit from when they were children. The Nigerian system should be built on our culture. The culture of the Calabari man. If I live as a Calabari man and I go into Ondo State and you start telling me about your Yoruba culture, I will understand it naturally. I would understand what it means to have a hierarchy. You don't need to tell me much about it. So what do we need to do? Let us build an African, Nigerian, focused political system. And we have had it. We had a political system before the Europeans came. We had a political system even when the slave trade was going on. We had a political system when the Europeans were here. So what are we running away from? We know what to do.
So what is this political system for the younger people who may not even understand what you're talking about?
First of all, this American system that we call presidential system in Nigeria, we need to go and readdress it. We cannot import a parliamentary system of the UK and it will work here. We cannot import a presidential system. It will not work here. Ask every African in their country, are they satisfied with the political system that they have and the democracy they have? They will tell you no. Why? Because it is contrary to who we are. Absolutely contrary.
Is it the operation of the system or the inability of the drivers of the system to deliver on dividends of democracy? Because those are two different things.
Two different things. The system, right, can be so easily exploited by a few. This particular system. You have not built institutions that are ever going to hold it to account. The institutions that are built on a different... So we are building institutions that are modeled along the British system. The British system is not our system. When they want to get an elder, somebody to lead in your village, they say, you sit down and you bring that person to go and represent. And everybody knows who that person is. They know from their father to their mother who they are. And they know if you are the eldest and you are a vagabond, the same system will say, no, you cannot go in. But in this system, I can bring a vagabond, put him in as local government chairman, swear him the system, the whole community cannot say one word. And I'll say, go and vote. And the next thing, the vagabond becomes the local government chairman.
So does this give credence to people who say we're running a system of plutocrats and kakistocrats? I think it was Alain Dume. Those big grammar. Alain Dume was speaking about.
My brother, we're running a system that we are not being true to ourselves.
Okay.
Okay? And the truth is that we individually and instinctively know. Do you know that you have more respect for your chief, your king, your local traditional ruler, than you have for the elected officials? Why? Why do we do that? Because we know that when the system works locally and you bring out the proper leader in that system, voted, the Council of Chiefs or whoever sit down, the community agree that this one, from the line that is coming through, this is the family that must bring it in, and all of that, they respect it. When that system, somebody goes and plays wayo within that system, they don't respect it. Everybody knows. And that is what we are seeing.
So it's time to bring our traditional institutions back into the system.
We must create a political system that is built around it so that we understand it and that will work for us.
Yeah, that reminds me of what, is it Uganda now, there's a tribe or majority tribe and all of that. So let's move away from that. Trump has a love and hate relationship depending on who is looking at him.
True.
I want you to give us maybe a perspective of how we now need to look at our foreign policy and what we can use as bait or leverage to get the things. The president has traveled, I think, if my count is correct, the president has traveled 30-something times since he became president of Nigeria, either to rest or for whatever foreign trip there is. I don't know how much he has brought in. I'm sure by their midterm, they will be able to tell us exactly how much he's brought in. But in 3 days, Trump went to Saudi Arabia, secured $600 billion deal. He went to Qatar, secured several billion-dollar deal, and even some more commitment. He went to Abu Dhabi in UAE, secured more deals. And this, the leverage of power, the leverage of authority, and then has now lifted sanctions on Syria as part of that, and has opened the door to Iran to say, let's have a conversation. So in 3 days, the man is raking in almost $1 trillion. Our aspiration for an entire GDP is what he pulled in 3 days. How should we, what if you were to sit with the president, he's a member of your party, and you tell him, look, in going forward, how should we pursue our foreign policy to be able to attract the kind of investment I feel that he's passionate about bringing to the country? What should it be? Okay,
I would say that he should do two clear things. First of all, position Nigeria as a very, very serious negotiator on the table. One thing that we must understand is that if Nigeria gets it right, not just this sub-sector, not just this sub-region, but the whole of Africa begins to pay attention. So Nigeria commands influence, first of all. But when you are going to command influence, you don't go begging. You don't go begging. So you must have a very clear issue about what is good for us. First and foremost, when it comes to the developmental sector, whether it's on telecoms, mining, whether it comes to power and all of that, there's an open space where a lot of investment needs to come in. No problem, you're bringing that investment. If that investment comes into Nigeria, it is to bring out what? Under no circumstance should the investment come in and what you're doing is just extracting and taking minerals out just like that. No, we have passed that stage a long time ago. What do we have here? What's the first thing that anybody will tell you about a Nigerian that we're smart? The first thing they will tell you about a Nigerian is that give the Nigerian an opportunity. What we will do is that we take over everything that we want to do. So fair enough, you know we're smart people. You know that we can do anything that we want to do and that we put our minds to. Why not create the opportunity and let them know that the opportunity exists here? They know about Nigerians there. They see Nigerians in America. They know what we can do. And now you see you have 200 million of those type of people here. And you don't think they would come. We have the opportunity, but we need to tell our story. So what should the president do? Rewrite our story. And let them understand that this is where the opportunity is. Not telling us that our people should be going abroad and Japan. For what?
So, because very soon we're going to have, maybe later part of the year, Africa this summit, US this summit, all our head of states will gather in one place.
They shouldn't go and beg, please.
And sometimes those pictures used to hurt me because yes, I feel like we come across as a charity case.
Yes, and that's wrong.
And that's why I'm asking you how we can reposition all of this and leverage as much as possible. But let's come back home. You're a member of the APC. I know you're not active in this government in that sense. Are you happy with how this government is managing the state affairs?
So on two sides. I think when we now look at the long-term take on what they're doing in terms of the economy, long-term, it takes time. That is moving in the right direction. So some of the things that they did, as painful as it is with subsidy, I can't turn around and tell you that subsidy was a bad thing that they took away. So that's being corrected. When you take a look at the foreign exchange market, it went terrible for a long time. But finally, we're getting to that point where the adjustment is coming and is stabilizing. When you look at some of the laws that have come in, whether from the CBN, the PIA that was signed and all, so you are now seeing that there is some stability, and I cannot take that away from them. That is moving on. On the other hand, some of the publicity, the way that the information is passed, is still not getting it right. The optics.
How do you mean?
When you need people to tighten their belts, and you're putting things that are long-term, then you also have to show that you are willing to cut back on some of your own expenses. And sometimes when we see what happens, for example, we read the other day that there was going to be some solar
installation.
Now, the way it was portrayed came out wrong. Because it seems as if you are saying that, you know what, everybody else is suffering in darkness, let them go and continue suffering, but we are now going to come in and make ourselves good. And I think some of those optics don't work. So you have to be careful how you bring out your information, what you say to people, and people have to know that even as if you are taking care of yourself, you are taking care of them, but you are putting them first. And I think that's where we need to change the story. People have to know that you really care about their struggle, you care about their troubles, you care about their security, even as you care for yours. We're not telling that story right.
So you do feel that the government is not showing enough empathy to the people? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think the story is being told right. And I think it can be done.
So is it the managers, is it the acts of government or the managers of communication of the government? Which is the wrong one here?
I think both have a part to play. If you are doing the right thing, but people are not seeing it or they're not getting the immediate effect because it's long term, then it means that your story has to be told well.
It's your party, so I'm going to put the question directly to you. The only card left for the presidency and his entire team to play right now, in my books, as an onlooker and as a journalist, is the card of you have to believe us. They have nothing else that I've listened, I've interviewed a couple of them, and colleagues of mine have done so. I've paid attention to what they are saying. The issue of liberalizing trade to taper inflation that would generate employment, and the short-term, long-term, hold on for now, it's going to be tough, it's going to be better, and all the measures they are putting in place, insufficient intervention in that sense. All of this put together, the common language is that we're doing something. You may not think we're doing anything, but you need to trust us. And a society that has a very low quotient for trusting the people in power. So tell me, is it possible for the people to trust Bola Tinubu, the president?
Okay. So, and you've just put that absolutely right. On the one hand, you're looking at the long term, and we know that those things are being done. But for people to believe in the long term, they have to see something that is happening today. What happens today are two things. The first aspect of it is that there must be some short-term gains that they must see and they must get. It's those short-term gains that will enable them to trust. Then secondly, it's a visual thing. The people who are in power, do they look as if they are taking a part of the heat as well themselves? And where that is not being done, then we have a problem. And I keep saying this, communication has to be right. People will trust what they see and they will trust what they feel before they trust what they hear. The optics are not right. And it's the optics that we have to get right. People have to see.
Mr. Cole, so when the PDP government was in power, they said PDP corruption, they messed up the system. Muhammadu Buhari is going to come and rescue the system. I don't think in the last 26 years, anybody has enjoyed as much goodwill as Muhammadu Buhari in terms of expectation and
for
hope.
Corruption.
Perhaps because of his earlier coming into power. Look at how it ended. This government said we were on the verge of going bankrupt. And now, this government has come to say, we are fixing it, believe in it. Another set of belief. How long should Nigeria bear? Because our lived-in reality right now is one of the toughest in our history in recent time. So all of the macroeconomic numbers they are throwing around is not making sense to the average person. Is it possible to even make sense without doing something quickly to reverse the trend of the cost of living? We're still waiting for the survey. We haven't seen it.
Cost of living, unfortunately, cost of living is still going to be high. So you need to do two things if you want to deal with cost of living. First of all, who are the people that are suffering the most? And those people who are suffering the most are the masses today. So what are the things that you need to do? The first aspect of it is that you have to make sure that money goes into that economy. See, if money is not flowing within the economy at the bottom part of it, people will continue to suffer. For money to flow into the economy, you have to be able to put it in things that they do every single day. What are the kind of things that they do? Building, mass housing. How are those things that the people will see and they will benefit from it? So today, one of the places that we need to get into is affordable accommodation. Just create it first. And let people see that I can afford and I can go into a house. Right now, people are sleeping under the bridges, so we need to do that. Food and agriculture, a major area that we need to deal with. We talk about it a lot, but for a long time, that aspect of it has been a big problem. But the biggest problem is security. Security continues to be one of the biggest challenges that we have.
You know, a lot of Nigerians who listen, and most of the time when we talk and we get the feedback, it's always the fact that their lived-in experience, no matter what anybody's saying,
it's terrible.
They are witnesses of their own experience. Every one of us is feeling the heat at the end of the day. So that is the way the president will be assessed, not what he's planning to do at the end of the day. And I'm happy you're a member of his party. But let's talk about one thing I've noticed. I analyzed the production of Nigeria, 2023, 2024, and now 2025 part. So we went from 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. That's our average. Let's just call it 1.5 in a sense. And all the touting of putting in Tantita and some of these organizations that are doing surveillance, it looks like we're doing more of stability to reduce vandalism than even increasing production. That is your X area. What is wrong with our production?
No.
We're not...
Sorry, go on. Your question.
No, I've landed.
Okay. So probably three things happened over the time. First, investment stopped. For like the last 15 years, there has been hardly any investment in oil and gas. Why? Because we are not signing a PIA. Thankfully, very recently, PIA was signed, so that's stable. So investment is coming back into that. Number two, the big production companies pulled out because they were not getting any headway. They just don't understand Nigeria again. Thankfully, Nigerian companies have come in to take over that space. So right now, stability, that's number one. Two, new companies have come into the space and they are Nigerians, so they have to invest in Nigeria. Three, the law has stabilized. Investment is coming. Unfortunately, for most Nigerians, long term. By the time that investment comes in and all of that.
I know that some will not come in the next even 6-5 years. Between 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years to build and all of that.
Correct.
But I cannot end the conversation without talking about your River State. When was the last time I went to...
this weekend.
You were in Abonima?
I was in Abonima.
Okay. So when you go to River State, what do you feel? Is it peace or...
Yeah. So
what exactly is the atmosphere like?
So first of all, it's an atmosphere of peace. As far as everybody is concerned, there are two things, and I ask the people in there. So I joke with them, okay, we're in state of emergency. How do you feel it? So for the general people, there's nothing like a state of emergency. However, somebody said to me something in Bundu Waterside. So this one of the local.
Bundu Waterside.
So I went to Bundu and I sat down with a friend of mine and I was asking, okay, how is the state of economy? How is the state of emergency affecting you? Economy. Right. And she said it's affecting the economy. Now she sells recharge card, little things in a small shop. And she said that the money, because of this state of economy, that she has noticed that since the state of economy state of emergency came into play till today, the money in circulation has gone down. Why is this? Rivers State is a very, very, very politics-driven state. So when politics is flowing, money is flowing. Right now, politics is on standby, so the money don't dry.
Are you worried that till now, almost 2 months down the line, both the Senate, let me just excuse the Senate, they just set up their own committee ad hoc. The National Assembly in general has not been able to oversight Ibokete Bas, the retired military general.
I think this whole thing caught them by surprise. I don't know. I still think
no, they approved it. Yeah, they approved it and gave the condition for the guys. They are not surprised. I don't think they were surprised.
I think they were, but it's okay.
They've not been able to oversight the man. Yeah. They invited him the other day and he said he's still settling in, so he can't give any.
He will answer to them at the end of the day. It's constitutional, and he has to. But I think the bigger problem is that I've always believed this. If they do not call everybody in place, this state of emergency is going to be extended by another 6 months because it has not solved the problem. We have a state of emergency, but the real problem, the underground problem, has not been solved.
Mr. Tony Cole, a businessman and politician, governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the last election in 2023 in Rivers State. Thank you, sir, for picking all the issues I threw at you.
Always.
With grace. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
God bless. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll get to that very issue I started off with Mr. Cole, the issue of DSS versus Professor Patu Tome. We're going to extensively look at it from a legal perspective with a lawyer right here. You don't want to miss it. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's talk to legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, Mr. Max Oga, joining us from Abuja City. Mr. Max, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me here this evening.
All right, let's go to this back and forth between the DSS that has started. First, I understand the case, there's no date yet, but of course they filed the case at the court in Abuja. Why did the DSS decide to get involved, in your view as a lawyer? And was it necessary for the DSS to get involved in what Professor Patu Tome calls a shadow government, to look at government critically, go head-to-head against them in terms of policy for policy, with options available to check the performance of government in that sense?
Well, I will take the second leg of your twin question, whether it is necessary for the DSS to take the action it has taken. And I will answer in the affirmative that it is yes. It is necessary, it is right that the DSS is doing what or took the step it did take, to seek clarification on whether there can be a shadow cabinet, right, under a presidential system of government. That's all they are asking for. Now, I picked something from what your last guest said, Mr. Tony Cole. Oh, he was talking of charge, prosecution, and all of that. And that's where a lot of the misconception is coming from. People are worked up because perhaps a lot of people are thinking that there's a criminal complaint against Professor Patu Tome. No. The DSS merely filed a civil action, which I believe will be an originating summons, seeking an interpretation of whether there can be a shadow cabinet under a presidential system of government. What I know, and what is common knowledge, is that you have shadow cabinets under parliamentary systems. We don't at the moment, practice a parliamentary system of government. We did that under our 1963 Constitution. What we practice at the moment is a presidential system patterned after the American system, which has no provision for a shadow, cabinet. So nobody is disturbing Professor Pat Otome. I'm happy that we're not talking of anybody invading his residence or office looking for him. We're not talking of anybody declaring him wanted. The DSS merely went to court because they don't want to make a mistake. The court, guide us. Is this permitted? Is this permissible under a current system of government, which is presidential? So if you ask me, sir, again and again, I will say again and again in response that it is necessary that this step is taken. We should commend what the DSS has done. This is a public interest litigation case, which will help us. It will develop and enhance our jurisprudence in that area so that moving forward, we won't need to make mistakes. It is along the same lines that Mr. Festus Keyamo had approached the court in the time past saying, hey, you need the approval of the Senate towards the appointment of service chiefs. It is still along these lines that people went to court. I think Jez Okutepa was one of them. I don't know if the court has said. I don't know if any court has given a decision on that. To say you need approval to appoint, Senate approval to appoint a chairman for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
Okay, Mr. Oga. Okay, Mr. Oga, my apologies. But so let me explain to you. I've had opportunity to interview Professor Pat, and I clearly listened attentively to him and his submission. The next day or 2 days after, I had the opportunity to discuss with Felix Morka, who is the spokesperson of the APC, who did a 3-pager and called him intellectual drag, I don't know why I keep forgetting that part. When I remember, I'll let you know. Anyway, he did a 3-pager in response to what Professor Pat said. And I asked him, you listened to Professor Pat. Do you now understand what he's saying? He said, yes, he does understand. In fact, I even challenged him to say, would you apologize? And I said, no, because he named people and all of that. What is the difference between what Professor Pat is doing and just what the opposition is supposed to do? Because in his view, from what I see, is that all of the opposition that are supposed to hold government to account, they are busy fighting internal battle, and government is dishing out policy every other day. Somebody has to be there with his team to say, oh, government, you're right or wrong, or this is a better way to do it. How is that a threat in any shape or form to national security? Is it because it's called government, or there are people named in different expertise to check policy direction? Now, Jeffrey, I agree with Professor Pat Otome 100%. That because the opposition political parties have shirked in their responsibility of putting our government or governments in check, and because nature about vacuum, what Professor Pat Otome is proposing to do has to be done. But what people have a problem with is saying we are setting up a shadow cabinet. If he runs a system where he calls people to analyze, to appraise what government is doing. For instance, if you take the students' loan issue, and Professor Pat Otome throws up someone, as he has always done. I mean, I've followed him for very long, for long, right from his Patitos gang days. You know, so if he throws up someone who says, oh, this is how the students' loan issue should be handled, right? Since the political parties have failed, nobody will have a problem with that. If he says, oh, this is how to build political parties, right? This is how to handle the issue of defection and all of that. Getting alternative views. All Prof is saying is, look, let's have alternative views that will help government. You know, but where people have an issue, including the DSS, which has gone to court, is for saying we will constitute a shadow cabinet. That's why they're having issues. You know, so I cannot be here to speak for Mr. Moka. Just a minute.
I cannot justify what Mr. Moka said.
Sorry, Mr. Oga. So why is the DSS erred to decide? The Constitution is very clear on how Nigeria has to be run. Section 1, subsection 1, 2, there are several other sections as to how a president is elected and all that. You have, by your own submission, you were even very clear on what this is intended to be. He is one head. He has decided to put a couple of heads who have different expertise and say, rather than just Patutomi talking, let's come together. You are a lawyer, you are a banker, you are this person. This government is moving on without the necessary checks they should be checked on. Okay, let's do something and check them time and again and put out alternative. So I'm still trying to process why it is a problem, because I'm looking at, they complain about the tendency to destabilize the government, incite political unrest, undermine national security. These are very heavy suspicion, if you ask me.
That's why the case is in court, so the judiciary can
I don't want to talk about that.
So
I don't want to talk about the case in court. I just want to look at it. I can't prejudice the. You understand? Let's avoid the case in court.
But I had said to you that I agree with the prof 100%. I agree with you. We must have alternative views on all issues, on all policies that government pursues or government is pursuing. Do you understand? I have no problems with Professor Patutomi running his big tent. I don't have a problem with that. Where he'll bring in eggheads, intellectuals who will weigh in on different issues, and perhaps government will pick from some of these things and learn. And I said to you, I said, where some people are having problems is the use of constituting, or rather the intention to constitute a shadow cabinet. That's what some people are having. Are having issues.
Is it semantics that's the problem?
I am not in disagreement with Professor Patutomi. I agree with him. Right? I agree with him that we must set agenda for the government. That's exactly what the Big Tent intends to achieve, setting an agenda for the government in different areas. I don't have a problem with that. The DSS did not go after him. The DSS went to court to say, guide us. And like I said,
sorry, Mr. Oga, my apologies. Shouldn't the DSS have first invited Professor Pat to say, just like I saw him post, and I said, Prof, let's have a conversation. I brought him on TV. I said, Prof, maybe you have to explain this thing because it's causing back and forth between you and the APC. Shouldn't the DSS have invited him first of all before? Did they invite him? Let's not be ahead of ourselves. Did they invite him and he didn't come? That's why they had to go to court?
Like I want to describe you. Correct me correct me if I'm wrong. Now that question gives an impression as if I'm the spokesperson of the DSS.
No, I'm talking to you as a lawyer. I'm talking to you as a lawyer. And
I'm not. Yes, and I'm not a lawyer for the DSS. So when you ask whether the DSS invited or shouldn't they have invited him, that means you're putting me in a position to speak for the DSS. I do not have the capacity.
No, I'm not putting you in. No, Mr. Oga, I'm not putting you in a position to prove. You are familiar with the law than I am. I'm just saying, if there's such a thing that is creating this furore that the state institution of state, like a DSS, for instance, anybody who has a DSS, anything, you have to put yourself in proper order so that you know what you're up against. I'm just saying, as a lawyer, don't you think it would have been fairer to say, Mr. Otomi, Professor Otomi, please come and explain yourself first and foremost. What do you mean? It's just a common question I'm asking, nothing to defend anybody here.
Now, sir, with what is going on now, if the DSS had said, oh, look, we are inviting you to come to our office on Monday, the 19th of May at 10 a.m. to give an insight into what you intend to do, the social media will be on fire that, oh, the DSS has invited Professor Patutomi and he will be arrested and detained and all of that. So they avoided all of that. So sincerely speaking, I still do not see where we have a problem with this, you know. I mean, it's a civil suit they filed against. It does not even need to engage a lawyer to be in court. On their own affidavit evidence alone, the court can determine the matter, whether they are right or wrong. If he elects to engage a lawyer, his lawyer or lawyers can be in court without him being there. And this issue will still be sorted out. So we don't need to lose sleep over this issue, my dear brother.
The reason why it's concerning, I'll tell you why the reason is concerning. There's a perception, right or wrong, that the government is not too comfortable with dissenting voices. I'm sure you've heard that over and over again. And now when an institution of state is involved in things like this, it looks like it's even aggravating the situation of that, because everything is about perception. Perception is people's reality, whether it's right or wrong, or correct or wrong. So that is why it's an important conversation. Don't you think that in going forward, we have to be careful how we manage things like this, so that because there's already the touting of, oh, one-party state, which is why Professor Pat is doing what he's doing. And if this continues in this trajectory, don't you think we're going to be having a perception that the APC-led government is hostile to dissenting voice?
I think I should be weighing in on giving my background on what the law expects in a situation like this. Right? But the way you have put your question, you want me to express my personal opinion.
No, you can go with the law. You can go with the law. I just asked a question. You can choose the part of the law. My job is to ask questions. That's what I'm paid to do.
Yes. Now, nobody has said to PU or PPU, Professor Pat Otome, that don't set up the big tent, don't do anything in that direction. No, nobody has said so. Nobody has said, hey, if you associate with the big tent, we'll get you arrested. Nobody has said so. So I don't know where the issue of suppressing, public opinion or free speech, comes into this whole mix. I'm yet to get that.
Okay, I must thank you so much. I'm just telling you, we manage communication. We are communications people, so we are the ones that speak to both the government, the opposition, and everybody on the street. So we have a fair panoramic view of how perception is filtered through. And so allow everybody to have their say and allow the audience to make a decision. But thank you for even coming to speak on this issue. Mr. Max Oga, a lawyer and a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and, of course, your usual company. Make sure you enjoy your weekend. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. Goodbye.